Welcome to News West 9's West Texas View with Johnny Lou Avery.
Welcome to the West Texas View. I'm Johnny Lou Avery, and last week we started a series of programs that Dr. Bobby Jane is helping us to present some very valuable information. He is the chair of the Department of Psychiatry at the Texas Tech University Health Science Center. And he sees patients almost every day, and the number rolling across your screen is that number that you can call for an appointment. But we talked last Sunday about his background and how he came to his specialty of children and adult depression and hyperactivity and those psychosomatic medicine. And this is a really important area because there's so few psychiatrists in our part of Texas. And so he's going to be giving you information that will help you to know what you need to do next. If you're one of the people in the audience that thinks that you need a psychologist or a psychiatrist. And he explained the difference between psychology and psychiatry last week. And if you missed that program, you can go online and watch it at www.youtube.com/West Texas View, and you can get a recap of that program because he really gave us some great information like the symptoms and what doesn't work in a family when you've got a hyperactive child or a child that has been diagnosed with ADD. And so we want to continue that conversation. Dr. Bobby Jane, Jain, who is here to talk to us about some of the things that we need to know. We've been talking primarily about children, and one of the things that you said that really surprised me was that once you have been diagnosed or once you have ADD, you will essentially have it the rest of your life. It'll just be in different forms.
Right.
Am I saying that right?
Well, let me clarify that. There is a lot of controversy between how much we used to think that when kids become adults, ADHD goes away. But new research shows that up to 80% of kids who have ADHD diagnosed before the age of 18 tend to have some remnants of symptoms in adulthood.
Okay.
They do not have the hyperactivity component. For example, you rarely see an adult running around as if driven by a motor, climbing on furniture, things like that. But adults with ADHD tend to have more distractibility. Usually, adults with ADHD have poor records of holding their jobs. They cannot hold their jobs. They get fired. They get bored easily. They tend to have struggle with substance abuse problems. And the choice of substances for them are usually stimulants like cocaine and methamphetamine. In other words, they're trying to self-medicate themselves because they found out some way or the other that that works for them. But it can be anything. It can be alcohol, anything. They tend to have a lot of problems.
So it's addictive behaviors.
They get to ADHD, adult ADHD, and addictive behaviors are very, very common. They tend to have, adult ADHD folks tend to have higher rates of depression and anxiety. I mean, you would imagine that someone who's not able to focus well, remember things, or do things well, tend to have very low self-esteem and very liable to suffer from depression. Other problems they have is, they have also problems with family and relationships. Because of their inability to focus and be attentive, and because of poor communication and poor ability to maintain relationships, they tend to have multiple relationships, breakdown of marriages, tend to have a lot of trouble with law. And the law things are very stereotypical. Mostly they are involved because they're very impulsive. They tend to have impulsive problems like speeding tickets. I had a gentleman who had been very nice, very educated, in other words, but very impulsive because of his ADHD. Had 4 or 5 speeding tickets in the last couple of years. And mostly, and that included like not only speeding, but also going through red lights, going through stop signs, those kind of problems that they encounter. Relationship-wise, because they have poor work history, they don't have the social skills that goes with ADHD to interact with opposite gender. They tend to have very high rates of divorce and breakdowns. So So these kind of problems that you encounter in adult ADHD, and when you go back and ask them their previous history when they were young, even though they may never been formally diagnosed, but they will give a history that as long as they remember when they were grade school, they had always had problems focusing and being attentive. Some of them having hyperactive problems.
And
also,
having problems within their own families.
that's very important. And always, ADHD never, it's a very genetic condition. It has to come from mother or father. And it's very likely that their kids are having it or their siblings are having it. So if you inquire about family history of that, you probably find significantly that there's family history there. When I see patients, when I diagnose kids in my office with ADHD, I always alert the parents to get other children screened for ADHD also. Because in girls particularly, it's more difficult to diagnose it because girls typically, not always, typically do not have hyperactivity. They do have what we call inattentivity. So they are more like daydreaming, more forgetful, spacing out, missing details of things, losing things. Those are the more significant problems they have. Unlike boys who are more hyperactive, they cannot sit still.
Swing
they
from
can
the chandeliers.
say the least. And then parents who will vouch, who have ADHD kid will vouch for it that they keep all the chinas locked door. They don't keep anything outside that's breakable because ADHD kids can get into
Clumsy
anything.
and just like a
we go.
bull in a china closet.
Right. They're all over the place. They cannot sit still or cannot do one thing and the other. They cannot disorganize and they do everything at the same time, finishing nothing.
But is this a disease? And I don't know if you call it a disease or not. But is this something that comes on late in life that maybe they didn't show these symptoms as a child, and all of a sudden as an adult they're showing these symptoms?
No. ADHD does not pop up an adult.
Okay, so
in fact, one of the things that we find out is someone who's saying that I'm having this problem for the first time in adulthood. Either they're forgetting what's going on before or there's something new. Because ADHD symptoms, depending on the severity, they may be having it much earlier, but the functioning is compromised during the adolescent or adulthood, but they had it all along. But I want to make sure that not everything is ADHD. I want to, that's one of the problems.
And so let's start there after the break. We're going to have to take a quick break. We'll be right back, and Dr. Jane will continue this conversation about the childhood symptoms. Be right back.
Stay tuned. West Texas View will be right back.